I discovered my wife was stealing from families of terminal cancer patients, then found out she'd been manipulating me for years. I never thought I'd be writing something like this. Even now, my hands are trembling as I type. 3 weeks ago, I had what I thought was a perfect life, a beautiful home in the suburbs, a fulfilling job as a high school English teacher, and a marriage to my college sweetheart, Elise, that I believed was built on honesty, respect, and unwavering love. Everything changed on October 12th. I came home early from work because I'd been fighting a migraine all day. The house was empty. Elise was supposed to be at her office where she works as the financial director for a nonprofit cancer foundation that helps families cover medical expenses. She'd been working there for almost 6 years and often talked about how meaningful her work was, how she was making a difference for families facing the worst moments of their lives. I went straight to our bedroom to lie down in the dark. When I reached into my nightstand for my prescription migraine medication, my fingers brushed against something unfamiliar. It was a small leather-bound notebook I'd never seen before. I probably should have just left it alone, but something about finding an unfamiliar object in my own nightstand drawer felt strange. The notebook contained lists of names, dollar amounts, and dates going back almost 4 years. Some amounts were crossed out, others highlighted. Next to several names were notes like terminal, 6 months or child, high priority. The most recent entry was dated just 3 days earlier. Alvarez family, $12,500, lung cancer stage 4, approved for emergency assistance. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I was confused and my head was pounding. I went to Elise's home office and opened her laptop. She'd always been very protective of her computer, claiming it contained sensitive patient information, but we knew each other's passwords for emergencies. I used hers to log in, immediately noticing a folder labeled Foundation Transfers on her desktop. Inside were spreadsheets. Dozens of them. Each documented money moving from the Foundation's accounts to what appeared to be offshore accounts. I didn't understand everything I was seeing, but the pattern was clear. Large sums intended for families battling cancer were being diverted. Not all of them, but enough. Hundreds of thousands of dollars over years. I felt physically sick. This couldn't be what it looked like. There had to be a logical explanation. I heard the garage door open. I quickly closed the laptop and went back to our bedroom, slipping the notebook back where I'd found it. When Elise came upstairs to check on me, I pretended to be half asleep. She kissed my forehead, told me she hoped I felt better, and went back downstairs to make dinner. I laid there in the dark, my migraine now compounded by a nauseating sense of dread. The woman humming in our kitchen, the one who volunteered at animal shelters on weekends and cried during sad commercials, couldn't possibly be stealing from cancer patients. It had to be a misunderstanding. But I couldn't shake what I'd seen. Those names in the notebook weren't just names, they were real people facing death, counting on help that might never have arrived because my wife, the person I trusted most in this world, may have stolen it. I spent 3 days in a daze, watching Elise like she was a stranger. She noticed something was off but assumed I was still fighting the migraine. I told her I was just stressed about upcoming midterm grading. Meanwhile, I dug deeper when she wasn't home. I found more evidence, bank statements showing unusual deposits, email exchanges with someone named Marcus about distribution schedules, and a hidden folder with photos of luxury properties in Costa Rica. On the 4th day, I couldn't take it anymore. We were having dinner, and Elise was talking about a new family the foundation had just approved for assistance, a single mother with stage 4 breast cancer and 2 young children. Will they actually get the money? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Her fork paused midway to her mouth. What do you mean? The family. Will they actually receive the funds, or will those funds be diverted to one of your offshore accounts? The color drained from her face. She set her fork down with deliberate slowness. You went through my things. Not denial. Not outrage at the accusation. Just anger that I'd discovered her secret. Are you stealing from cancer patients, Elise? She stared at me for what felt like eternity, then said something that chills me to this day. You wouldn't understand the complexities of nonprofit finance. I exploded. I'm not a confrontational person by nature, but I found myself standing, screaming, demanding answers. How long? How much? How could she sleep at night knowing she was taking money meant for dying people and their desperate families? Elise remained eerily calm. Sit down, Michael. You're being dramatic. Dramatic? Dramatic? You're stealing from dying children. I'm reallocating resources to ensure long-term sustainability, she said, like she was explaining a simple budget adjustment. The foundation would collapse under poor management, and then no one would get help. I'm protecting the organization. By buying property in Costa Rica? My voice cracked. Is that what you call protecting the organization? Something changed in her eyes then, a coldness I'd never seen before. She stood up slowly, walked around the table, and placed her hand on my shoulder. Michael, my sweet, naive Michael. Do you really think a high school teacher could afford this house? The vacations we take? The life we've built? Where do you think that comes from? I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. What are you saying? I'm saying you've benefited from every dollar I've protected. You just didn't want to ask questions because you enjoyed the lifestyle. I stumbled backward, away from her touch. That's not true. I never knew. You knew, she said flatly. Maybe not consciously, but you knew something didn't add up. You chose not to see it. I fled to the bathroom and vomited. When I came out, Elise was calmly washing the dinner dishes like nothing had happened. She suggested I get some rest. Said we could discuss this more rationally in the morning. Like we were disagreeing about paint colors, not criminal fraud. I couldn't sleep in our bed that night. I took a blanket to the guest room and laid awake until dawn, replaying our entire relationship in my mind. Had there been signs all along? Had I willfully ignored them? In the morning, Elise was gone. She'd left a note saying she was staying with her sister for a few days to give me space to process. The note ended with "I love you, and I hope you'll understand that the world isn't as simple as your literature classes make it seem." I called in sick to work and spent the day in a daze, trying to figure out what to do. Should I go to the police? The foundation's board? Would I be implicated too? After all, I had benefited from the stolen money, even unknowingly. That night, my doorbell rang. It was a woman I'd never seen before. She introduced herself as Mariana Alvarez. My heart stopped. That name. It was in the notebook. Alvarez family, $12,500. "I'm sorry to bother you at home," she said, looking exhausted. "I got your address from someone at the foundation. I've been trying to reach your wife for days. The emergency funds we were approved for. They never arrived. My husband's hospice care." Her voice broke. "We can't afford to keep him there without that money. They're going to transfer him to the state facility tomorrow. I just want him to die with dignity. Please." I invited her in, my mind racing. I offered her water, which she accepted with shaking hands. She showed me all the approval documentation, everything indicating the funds should have been dispersed a week ago. "My husband has days left," she whispered. "We were counting on this help." I excused myself and went upstairs, grabbed my emergency savings box, and came back down with $10,000 in cash, nearly everything I had. I gave it to her, telling her it was an advance while we sorted out the paperwork issue. She broke down crying, hugging me, thanking me over and over. After she left, I sat on my living room floor and sobbed. The magnitude of what Elise had done hit me fully. This wasn't abstract numbers on spreadsheets. This was a dying man who might spend his final days in institutional care rather than surrounded by family because my wife had stolen his relief money. I called my closest friend, David, who's an attorney. I told him everything, barely coherent through my tears. He came over immediately. After listening to the full story, he looked me straight in the eyes. "Michael, you need to go to the authorities. Now. Tonight. Before Elise has a chance to cover her tracks further." "But what if I'm implicated? We shared finances. Our house." "You didn't know," he insisted. "And you have evidence of when you found out and what you did immediately after. You gave your own money to one of the victims. That's not the action of a co-conspirator." I knew he was right, but I was terrified. This wasn't just about potential legal consequences for me. It meant accepting that my entire marriage, 8 years of what I thought was love and partnership, had been built on lies. David drove me to the FBI field office that night. I brought everything I'd found and gave a full statement. The agents were compassionate but direct. This was serious: fraud, embezzlement, wire fraud across state lines. They asked if I would be willing to help them gather more evidence. I agreed. When I returned home at 3 a.m., Elise was there, sitting in the dark living room. "Where have you been?" she asked softly. For a split second, I considered lying. But I was done with lies. "The FBI." Her face hardened. "You stupid, self-righteous man." She stood up and came toward me. "Do you have any idea what you've done? To us? To our future? There is no us anymore, Elise. There never really was. Everything was a lie." "Not everything," she said, her voice softening. She reached for my hand. "I do love you, Michael. That was never fake." Her touch, once so comforting, now made my skin crawl. I pulled away. "A woman came here tonight. Mariana Alvarez. Her husband is dying, and you stole the money that was supposed to help them. Something flickered in Elise's eyes, not remorse, but annoyance, like I'd pointed out a minor scheduling error. There are always sob stories, Michael. Everyone thinks their tragedy is the most important. I made calculated decisions. They're not sob stories, they're people. How many have there been? How many families suffered because of you? She shrugged. Some funds were redirected. Others were delayed. It's business. It's cancer patients. I was shouting again, unable to comprehend her coldness. Children with leukemia. Parents saying goodbye to their kids. And I helped hundreds of others, she snapped back. The foundation is still standing because of my management. Without me, it would have collapsed years ago for mismanagement, and then where would all your precious cancer families be? I stared at her, truly seeing her for the first time. Who are you? I don't even know who you are. She laughed, a hollow sound. I'm exactly who I've always been. You just preferred the version of me you created in your head. She walked toward the stairs. I'm going to bed. In the morning, you're going to call your FBI friends and tell them you made a mistake. That you misunderstood what you saw. That you were emotional and paranoid. I won't do that. She turned, her expression suddenly gentle. Yes, you will. Because if you don't, I'll make sure everyone knows you were involved from the beginning. I have documents with your signature, Michael. Accounts in both our names. Who do you think they'll believe? The respected financial director with an MBA and a decade of nonprofit experience, or the high school teacher who suddenly got cold feet about his involvement? My blood ran cold. You're threatening me. I'm giving you a chance to save yourself. To save us. She came back down a few steps. I forgive you for tonight's mistake. We can get past this. I backed away toward the door. I can't stay here tonight. Her expression darkened again. If you walk out that door, there's no coming back. I left. I spent the night at David's house, barely sleeping, jumping at every noise, convinced Elise would show up. In the morning, I called the FBI agent I'd spoken with and told her about Elise's threats. They moved quickly after that. By afternoon, Elise had been arrested at the Foundation's office. News vans were parked outside our home. My phone exploded with calls and texts from colleagues, friends, even parents of my students. The story was breaking, and it was even bigger than I'd realized. According to the initial investigation, Elise had diverted over $1.8 million meant for cancer patients and their families over 5 years. The Foundation's board was shocked and horrified. Some families had received reduced amounts. Others got nothing at all. I took a leave of absence from teaching. I couldn't face the pitying looks, the whispers. I stayed with David for 2 weeks while being questioned repeatedly by federal agents. They eventually cleared me of involvement but warned that I might lose assets that were purchased with fraudulent funds, including my home. I didn't care about the house anymore. It felt tainted. Every beautiful object in it represented someone's suffering. Edit, thank you all for the supportive comments. I'm overwhelmed by your kindness. To address some common questions, yes, I'm cooperating fully with authorities. No, I haven't spoken to Elise since her arrest, her attorney has advised against any contact. And yes, I'm in therapy, trying to understand how I missed the signs for so long. Update, it's been 3 weeks since my initial post. Things have developed rapidly, and not in ways I expected. I've learned so much more about the woman I thought I knew, and each revelation has been more disturbing than the last. 2 days after my last update, I was contacted by the lead FBI investigator. They wanted me to come in again. I thought it was for more questions about the Foundation, but it wasn't. They'd found something else while searching our home and Elise's various storage units. Multiple identities. At least 3 complete sets of identification documents with Elise's photo but different names. Bank accounts tied to these identities. And most disturbing of all, a detailed dossier on me from before we met. Background information, photos taken without my knowledge, notes on my potential suitability and financial prospects. Mr. Harlow, the agent said gently, we have reason to believe your entire relationship with Elise Chambers was premeditated. I couldn't process what she was saying. What do you mean premeditated? We believe she targeted you specifically because of your family background, clean credit history, and trusting nature. There are notes about how your position as a teacher would provide an excellent cover for her activities due to the modest expected income. The room seemed to tilt sideways. Are you saying our meeting in college wasn't random? The agent slid a folder across the table. Inside was a printed email from Elise to someone named Marcus, dated 2 weeks before she and I supposedly met by chance in the university library. Target identified. English major, comes from solid middle-class family. Clean background, no criminal connections. Naive but not stupid. Beginning approach next week. Will update on progress. I vomited into the trash can they quickly pushed toward me. It wasn't just the foundation. Elise, if that was even her real name, had apparently done this before. 2 previous identities showed similar patterns, establishing herself in organizations with access to funds meant for vulnerable populations, creating seemingly legitimate relationships, then systematically siphoning money. The Cancer Foundation was just her biggest score. That night, I checked into a hotel under David's name, terrified that other people might be involved who could be looking for me. I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about every moment of our relationship, our chance meeting, her persistent pursuit of me despite my initial hesitation, her suggestion that we move to this specific suburb, her encouragement when I took a teaching position that paid less than corporate opportunities. Had any of it been real? The woman who held me when my father died? Who nursed me through pneumonia 3 winters ago? Who knew exactly how I liked my coffee and which side of the bed I preferred? I started making calls to people from our wedding. Her supposed childhood friends. Her sister Jen, who I'd met multiple times. The cousin who was a bridesmaid. One by one, numbers disconnected or people who answered claimed they'd been paid to play roles. The sister was an actress who'd been told she was participating in an elaborate surprise for a reality show. My entire marriage had been an elaborate con, and I was the mark. I drank until I passed out, waking to my phone ringing at 7 a.m. It was a number from the county jail. I answered. Michael? It's me. Elise. My hand shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. Please don't hang up, she said quickly. I know they've told you things. Showed you things. But they don't understand. Understand what? My voice didn't sound like my own. That I love you. That was never part of the plan, but it happened. You have to believe me. I laughed, a hollow sound even to my own ears. Believe you? I don't even know who you are. What's your real name? Was anything real? She was silent for a moment. Natalie. My real name is Natalie Weiss. And Marcus? Who is he? Your actual husband? Partner? He's my brother, she said quietly. We've been working together since we were teenagers. Our father taught us the business before he went to prison. I felt sick again. The business? You mean destroying lives for profit? We never set out to hurt anyone, she insisted. It started small, just enough to survive after our father was gone. But it evolved. Marcus handles the technical side. I handle relationships. Relationships, I repeated. Is that what our marriage was to you? A business relationship? No. Her voice cracked. Not with you. It started that way, yes. You were supposed to be a convenient cover. A good guy teacher everyone would trust. But I fell in love with you, Michael. That's why things got complicated. Why I took bigger risks. I wanted to give you everything. With stolen money from dying children. I know how it sounds. Do you? Do you know what you've done? Not just to me, but to hundreds of families? People who sold their homes to pay for treatments because the assistance they were promised never came? Children who watched their parents suffer because they couldn't afford proper palliative care? She was crying now. I can make it right. I can tell them where the money is. All of it. If you'll just visit me. If you'll look me in the eyes one more time. I recognized the manipulation tactic instantly, which was progress, I suppose. You're only offering that because you've been caught. Because you want something from me. I'm offering because I love you, she insisted. And I think, despite everything, you still love me too. The terrifying thing was, part of me did still feel something for her. Not the real her, the criminal, the con artist, the monster who could watch families suffer and sleep soundly at night, but the version of her I'd built in my mind over 8 years. The woman I thought I knew. The ghost of someone who had never existed. Goodbye, Elise. Or Natalie. Or whoever you are. I hung up and blocked the number. 2 days later, I received an envelope at David's house, where I'd been staying. Inside was a handwritten letter and a safety deposit box key. Michael. By the time you read this, I will have told the authorities everything. Where the money is. How the operation worked. Names of accomplices, including Marcus. I've given them everything in exchange for one thing, that they consider your complete innocence in their prosecution. I know you won't believe this, but meeting you changed me. Loving you changed me. You deserve so much better than what I gave you, and nothing I do now can undo the hurt I've caused. But I can try to mitigate the damage. The enclosed key opens box number 247 at First National on Oakwood Drive. Inside is enough evidence to help the foundation recover most of the diverted funds. There's also documentation that should protect your assets from seizure, proof that you had no knowledge or involvement. I won't ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But please know that in a life filled with lies and manipulation, my love for you became the only real thing about me. Natalie. I took the letter straight to the FBI. They accompanied me to the safety deposit box, where we found exactly what she'd promised: account numbers, passwords, transfer records. Everything needed to trace and recover most of the stolen money. There were also meticulous records showing my complete lack of involvement or knowledge. Over the following weeks, the full story emerged through news reports and court documents. Natalie Weiss and her brother Marcus had been running variations of this scheme for nearly 15 years. The Cancer Foundation was their largest target, but there had been others: a hurricane relief organization, a children's hospital fund, even a veterans support group. Always preying on the most vulnerable, always using my wife's remarkable ability to appear compassionate and trustworthy. Elise, Natalie, pled guilty to all charges in exchange for a reduced sentence. She's serving 12 years in federal prison. Marcus received 18 years after attempting to flee the country. 3 other accomplices I'd never even heard of also went to prison. As for me, I was legally cleared but socially devastated. I eventually returned to teaching, but at a different school in a different district. Too many people knew the story, had seen my face on the news. The clueless husband became my identity. The foundation created a restitution fund for affected families, including the Alvarezes. I learned that Mr. Alvarez had passed away at home, surrounded by family, thanks in part to the money I'd given his wife that night. It's the only comfort I've found in this nightmare. I've spent countless hours in therapy trying to understand how I could have been so thoroughly deceived. How I could have shared a bed, a home, a life with someone for 8 years and never glimpsed her true nature. My therapist says master manipulators like Natalie are expert at targeting certain personality types, empathetic people with strong moral codes who naturally project their own goodness onto others. I was the perfect mark because my inability to comprehend such callousness made me blind to it even when evidence was right in front of me. Sometimes I wake up in my small new apartment and forget, just for a moment, that my entire life was a fabrication. I reach across the bed for someone who never really existed. I wonder if the woman I loved was complete fiction or if fragments of a real person occasionally broke through the performance. One question haunts me more than any other: in those quiet moments when it was just the two of us, watching movies, walking on the beach, holding each other during thunderstorms, was any of it real for her? Did she ever forget the con and simply exist with me as two people in love? I'll never know. The foundation has asked me to speak at their annual fundraiser next month. They think my story will help restore donor confidence, showing that the fraud was the work of sophisticated criminals, not organizational negligence. I've agreed, though the thought of standing in front of hundreds of people and exposing my naivety terrifies me. I've learned that there's no moving on from something like this, only moving forward while carrying it. The betrayal has fundamentally altered how I see everything and everyone. I analyze casual interactions for signs of manipulation. I question generous gestures. I doubt expressions of affection. My capacity for trust hasn't just been damaged, it's been systematically dismantled. But I'm trying. I've made new friends who know my story and understand my hesitation to fully engage. I've reconnected with family members I drifted away from during my marriage, another red flag I missed: how Elise subtly isolated me from my support system. The most painful lesson in all this has been recognizing that sometimes the people who cause the greatest harm are those who make us feel the most loved. Natalie didn't just steal money, she stole years of my life, my sense of reality, and my ability to trust my own judgment. The foundation will recover financially. The affected families will receive the help they were promised. But some losses cannot be restored. If there's anything good that's come from this nightmare, it's the clarity of purpose I've found. I've established a small nonprofit that educates people about affinity fraud, schemes that exploit group trust and connection. I speak at schools about the warning signs of manipulation. I'm writing a book about my experience, hoping it might help others avoid similar pain. Yesterday, I received another letter from prison. I recognized her handwriting immediately. I held the envelope for a long time, debating whether to open it or burn it unread. In the end, I opened it. Michael, I don't expect you to respond to this. I just wanted you to know that the authorities have recovered almost all of the money using the information I provided. The families will get the help they were promised. It doesn't undo what I did, but I hope it gives you some peace. I think about you every day. About the life we could have had if I'd been the person you thought I was. The person I sometimes wished I could become for you. I'm sorry. Not just for what I did, but for who I was. For who I am. Always. Natalie. I folded the letter carefully and put it away with the others I've received and never answered. Maybe someday I'll respond. Or maybe I'll finally burn them all and release myself from the last threads of connection to the woman who destroyed my life while claiming to love me. For now, I'm focused on rebuilding. On learning to trust again, starting with myself. On believing that my judgment isn't fatally flawed, just human. On accepting that sometimes people we love are not who they present themselves to be, and that missed red flags don't make us stupid, they make us hopeful. And hope, even after everything, is something I'm not willing to surrender. Am I a fool for keeping her letters? For sometimes reading them late at night and wondering if there's a kernel of truth in her claims that she truly loved me? Maybe. But I'm working on forgiving that foolishness too. On understanding that the heart heals at its own pace, even when the mind knows better. If you've read this far, thank you for bearing witness to my story. There's something healing about knowing I'm not alone in this, that others understand the unique agony of discovering your life's foundation was built on quicksand. If you're going through something similar, please know it does get better. Not quickly. Not completely. But gradually, persistently, day by day. Trust, once shattered, may never be fully restored to its original state. But maybe, like those Japanese pottery techniques where broken pieces are mended with gold, what emerges can still be beautiful, different, marked by its fractures, but stronger at the broken places.